me? Yes? Okay. I also prefer don't use microphones, excuse me. But I need my papers just to be sure that I have control of the time given, so let me read a little bit. Well, groundwater is one of the components of the ecosystems, as you know, but it's not the only one. But it doesn't mean that it's not important. It's really crucial for many ecosystems. So the so-called groundwater dependent ecosystems, as you know, are those ecosystems that require access to groundwater to meet all or some of their water requirements in a permanent or intermittent basis, so as to maintain their communities of plants and animals, ecosystem processes, and ecosystem services. It is accepted that there are three main groups of groundwater-dependent ecosystems. The first one are those that rely on the subsurface presence of groundwater. They are any groundwater-dependent ecosystems that accesses subsurface groundwater to meet all or some of their water requirements. This includes terrestrial vegetation, subsurface fauna communities, and some vegetation which is associated with surface water bodies. The second group are those groundwater-dependent ecosystems that rely on the surface expression of groundwaters. This means any groundwater-dependent ecosystems which uses groundwater after it discharges to the surface. This includes all groundwater-fed surface water bodies, such as river, wetlands, lakes, and springs. As an example, Abraham Springer in 2008 published a very interesting paper that I encourage to read about spheres of springs in different environments, sedimentary, karst, and volcanic environments. Third, subsurface groundwater-dependent ecosystems is the last group. They are any water-dependent ecosystems occurring below the surface of the ground, within fractured, porous, or unconsolidated aquifers in both the saturated and unsaturated zones. This means that groundwater-dependent ecosystems are presented in many areas of the landscape, mostly depressions and areas where takes place an interaction between groundwater and surface water. The most common situation used to be in unconsolidated aquifers, where water table reaches the surface of the ground. Well, I'm going to deal with three main concepts: sustainability development, later resilience of the ecosystems, and later management. But all of them are connected, so I will try to express my message for you through this connection. So this concept, sustainability development, was first coined in the 1980s and has been expressed in a variety of ways over the years. Rogers in 2006, for example, quotes the existence of 20 widely used definitions. Perhaps the better known meaning of sustainability was given by the United Nations Commission on Sustainable Development in 1987 to satisfy current needs without compromising the needs of future generations. You know this definition very well. Well, nevertheless, we would like to see, as we listened yesterday in the afternoon in different talks, it seems clear that sustainability means different things to different people. A reason for this is the multidimensional nature of the concept. There might be many different aspects to be considered in assessing whether a given development can be labeled sustainable. A succinct overview of this concept provides different aspects involved. Up to 9 may be recognized, as you see in this figure, but it's interesting to know that also perception as to what is sustainable vary across geographical boundaries and also rooted in cultural aspects and socioeconomic situations. We will focus on hydrogeological sustainability. And let us take an example. At a given aquifer, pumping rates for irrigation may provide sustainable from the hydrological point of view, understanding that storage or average recharge are large enough. However, water table drawdowns may induce degradation of valuable groundwater-dependent ecosystems, such as wetlands, which may be considered unsustainable from the ecological point of view. Would a restraint from pumping be the most sustainable course of action in that case? The answer to this question is really difficult. If farmers' livelihoods, for example, rely heavily on groundwater resources, a ruthless push for wetlands restoration may not be the best solution to the problem. So, in that case, like in many real-life situations, the social and economic aspects of sustainability come into play and may eventually offset environmental consciousness. The second concept I will deal with is resilience. As you know, it's defined as the ability of a system to anticipate, absorb, accommodate, or recover from the effects of a shock or a stress in a timely and efficient manner. It's different from risk. This concept, risk, is understood as the likelihood of suffering harms or loss. The term shock, stress, and hazards are understood as elements that causes adverse effects. So recent literature tends to focus on resilience more as a process than at an outcome, involving learning, adaptation, anticipation, and improvement in basic structure as actors and functions. The focus on resilience as a process helps to see it not at a state, but a dynamic set of conditions as embodied within a system. The aim of resilience programming is therefore to ensure that shocks and stresses, whether individually or in combination, do not lead to a long-term downturn in development progress as measured by the Human Development Index, economic growth, or other means. A resilient system is that is prepared for impacts and is able to respond to recover efficiently. These figures, show that the build-up of longer-term stress and short-term shocks require countermeasures as pivotal moments to ensure that development pathways continue on upward trend. In reality, some countermeasures are likely to be in place prior to the impact, and in many different shocks and stresses may combine and occur close together, each impacting the level of resilience at different scales and each requiring separate or integrated measures to reduce the abruptness of downward development trends. A perturbation affecting a system, or in this case, we are talking about ecosystem, may have two main responses. It might be an adaptation. This means changes in some variables of the system. If there is an adaptation, we can be changes in some variables that means changes in a structure and functioning of the ecosystems, and the system may move to another change, going towards a transformation where we have changes in most of the system variables that cause changes in the structure and functioning of the ecosystem. Well, I will show you two examples of Spain. They are one inland wetland and one coastal wetland. Both of them are sites of community importance belonging to the Nature 2000 network and affected by different impacts. Tablas de Miel is the first one. is located in the Upper Guadiana Basin in Spain, in the south part, central part of Spain, but it's a big area. It's an example of the practical implementation of integrated water resources management, and more specifically the need to deal with borders of the past. This region is subject to two main stresses. One of them is pumping for agriculture, and the second one, droughts. The Guadiana River is a river that starts to run in the so-called Campo de Montiel. Well, you can see here easily. It starts to run for 20 kilometers and then disappear. And it starts to run again in the Ojos del Guadiana till the Atlantic Ocean. This river is shared by Spain and Portugal. So the average precipitation is 415 millimeters by year. It's a semi-arid area. There are more than 100 of protected wetlands, which were recognized as Mancha Húmeda Biosphere Reserve by UNESCO in 1981. 6 of them are Ramsar sites. All the area of the Upper Guadiana Basin are groundwater bodies, so there is a very high connection between surface water and groundwater. And the three central groundwater bodies are the so-called Mancha Occidental Aquifer. All the Upper Guadiana Basin, the groundwater bodies are connected, and the groundwater flow comes from the north to the central area and from the south to the central area. And in the central aquifers, the groundwater flows from the east to the west. So this means that the main discharge area is concentrated here, where the tablas de the main. In fact, these three groundwater bodies are the main collector of the whole system. Well, you have here a view of from east to west of the aquifer. It's a karstic area, so and the whole groundwater flow is coming to the west. In the 1970s, based on an ancient private water abstraction rights for the 19th century water law, the advances in well drilling and pumping technologies contributed to the spread of intensive groundwater irrigation in this area. For decades, intensive groundwater use contributed to social and economic development. If you see the green line here, is the irrigation area. Sorry, because perhaps behind you can see it very well, but okay. Screens. Okay. I hope it helps. And then about 130 hectares were put under irrigation between the late 70s and the early 80s. And between 1985 and 1990s, at this moment, the abstraction exceeded 500 millions of cubic meters, and the water table dropped down to 50 meters. It causes the water table to drop to the point that surface and groundwater bodies came disconnected, so we had very dry and desiccated wetlands. Also, this has an adverse effect on wetlands, among other environmental impacts, such as terrain collapses, because it's a karstic aquifer, so suddenly it started to appear in many areas collapse of the terrain. And also there was spontaneous peat combustion, because the saturated zone became the saturated zone became unsaturated, and then there was some combustion of the pits. You can see a picture here from 1994 and 2010. So traditional water efficient crops such as vineyards, that was the common crops in the area, changed to cereal, olive trees, and were gradually replaced by other water-intensive crops, such as maize and beets and other. These were favored by European subsidies, and all these changes provide a boost to the local agricultural economy, enhancing per capita income and creating an adequate environmental related industry. On the other hand, the water table dropped and so did flows in the region's river. The Ojos del Guadiana spring, that was the second appearance of the Guadiana River, as you remember, dried up in 1984. So Ojos del Guadiana disappeared, and there was no more discharge of the groundwater there. And the wetlands of Las Tablas de Daimiel also suffered a severe reduction in terms of water inflows. Agricultural intensification also triggered a decrease in groundwater quality. Okay. It was, Las Tablas de Daimiel was a discharge wetlands which received groundwater for, I'm back. Excuse me? Okay, I'm here. Excuse me. Well, I'm going to move on. As you see here, this is the residual mass cube of precipitation in Tablas de Daimiel. We have a very dry sequence of dry years from the end of the 70s till 2005. And the worst situation of Tablas de Daimiel was at the end of this period. It was just interrupted but by a humid 2 years period, but it was mainly a very dry sequence, very long. And in that moment there was many conflicts between farmers, governmental staff, different actors of this area because of different interests. People want to pump, water authorities says there is no water to pump, the aquifer is almost exhausted, so it was a difficult situation to control. The Tablas de Daimiel is what it was thought that was ecologically in coma, like a death ecosystem, almost in a recovery situation, a reversible situation, let's say. And from 1987, a variety of plans, measures, and laws have been implemented, including the European Water Framework Directive, of course. I was just mentioned two of them. First, it was put into practice a transfer water from other basins, from the Tajos Basin in the north to Segura Basin in the south. It was allowed to take some water from this transfer through the Figuela River till Tablas de Daimiel. This has been working from the 80s only in dry years. The other measure was to prepare different recharge wells along the upstreams of Guadiana River, and these measures, jointly with the different measures applied, get a real, this is just to show you that the changes in the Tablas de Daimiel behavior has been mainly to move from being a discharged wetland to a recharged wetland. But what I really want to show you is that we had now a recovery of the ecosystem because of the measures applied and the humid years that has been coming from 2010 till now. So I'm going to stop here because I already.
Thank you.
Thank you.